It's Friday, 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 and it's 9 o'clock, and you are listening to Eclectic Ramblings right here on WFOV 92.1 LP FM Flint, on Spectacle TV, and also on our Facebook page. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Timmy, where you going, man? Where you going?
I'm changing the lighting because I'm looking all washed out. No. I'm just changing the lighting because I'm looking all washed out.
Yeah, you need a light in front of you, man. You need a light in front of you.
I'm in the indoor studio tonight.
Nice. I think I made a big mistake. I put the camera over here and the laptop over here. So I'm going to have to keep doing this in order to keep up the speed and figure out if somebody jacks in the room or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm afraid to move either or.
I was asked to do a Bible reading, record a Bible reading for my online church service on Sunday. And as I reviewed it, I noticed I thought I had everything sitting perfectly aligned so that I was looking at the camera as I was reading from the computer screen. And it turned out, it's very obvious. I'm looking to the side of the camera.
Well, I think what I'm going to do is change cameras. And that way, that won't be an issue anymore. If I go with this camera, there you go. If I go with this camera, I'll be all right. You just won't have the pretty background. I want to show you the shirt that my sister sent me. You want to see this? Man, I can't hear you. What's going on? Oh, I muted you. You're muted.
Okay. I said, I saw that. I said, I love Christy. She's brutally honest.
Well, what I do is I love the double entendre. You know what I mean?
The world's most okayest brother. Remember, black votes matter.
Hey, listen, this is my don't scare white people shirt. I can get away with this one. I'm going to turn my light on now. I got all this light in here, and I'm not using it. I might as well glare it right now. Boom!
I'm actually wearing a T-shirt.
Oh, that's horrible.
I'm actually wearing a T-shirt I designed for a Boy Scout course several years ago. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but on the front here, you got two Scoutmasters staring off in the distance, sucking on a cup of coffee while there's a poor Scout hung up in his tent frame.
Nice. In other words, he's saying you guys aren't on your job, huh?
Yeah. Well, that's always the joke that at the time I was the Scoutmaster, and my assistant Scoutmaster, who's now the Scoutmaster, Lance. He and I would sit back and suck on our coffee and basically act like we don't see nothing going on with the boys, because it was always our attitude was we let them step over the cliff with that second foot and we snatch them out of midair and bring them back and then talk to them about what they just did wrong.
So you let them get both feet over the cliff?
Yeah. How else are they going to learn?
Well, with 1 foot over the cliff, Timmy, with one foot over.
Because then they always think that Mr. Bull is going to come rescue them.
I see.
Two things I wanted to instill in my boys is critical thinking and improvise, adapt, and overcome in any situation.
All right. Makes sense.
Yep.
It makes sense. Anything interesting happened to you this week?
What didn't happen to me interesting?
You got that kind of light?
Let me say that I've been wet more times than I would like to this week, and not from taking a shower, but from out in my backyard playing in a shower. So
that's a good thing, right?
Well, my back patio, not the patio where the pool is, but the outside patio, for years has been flooding over, and I've been trying to fix it. Well, I finally come to accept the fact that the way my yard is pitched, the only way I can fix it is to put in a sump pump, and plumbing to push the water via the pump out to the street. So I get the sump pump, get the sump in, get the first sump pump in, and I bought this one on a tether. Well, I didn't realize the tether required twice as much room as a normal sump pump. So the float keeps getting stuck over on the side, and I'm trying to figure out fixes for that in the middle of pouring down storms. Finally, I gave up, and I went and I bought a new sump pump with a straight up and down float. And I thought, okay, beautiful. This is going to work. No worries. Wrong answer.
Well, it's the thought that counts, Timmy. It's the thought that counts.
What I discovered with the new sump pump is somehow, and I just don't understand the engineering. You have a screen that is supposed to prevent the pump from sucking in any objects that are too big for the impeller to push up through the plumbing.
Right.
Well, somehow this pump managed to suck in something that was too big, and it got in there and seized up the impeller. Next thing I know, the whole back patio's flooded, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? And the motor's not running, and I'm tearing it all apart in the rain.
Now, this is a brand new pump, right?
Brand spanking new pump. I find out that what happened was there was a little piece of wood about that big that somehow got through the screen and had the impeller jammed. As soon as I got it out of there, the impeller starts spinning.
Wow. So it was like a piece of mulch or something?
Yeah, because I got bark mulch all down that side of the house. So it starts to rain, it starts to flood, the mulch starts to float, even though it's called no float mulch.
So you anticipated this problem and bought no float
mulch. Well, guess what? It does float.
I didn't know it existed. I just learned about triple shredded. Have you heard about this triple shredded?
Yeah, it's really fine shredded mulch.
It's fabulous, dude. I did my whole driveway.
Yeah?
I did. The guy said
the driveway itself, where you drive the vehicles.
Exactly. I had gravel on my driveway. So the gravel driveway or limestone or whatever you want to say. And the pebbles on it were hurting my feet.
Uh-huh.
And I like to walk around barefoot in the summertime. So I bought, 3 yards? 3 yards. I did 3 trips in my truck and got 3 yards to do the garden. And once I got done with the garden, I looked at the path in the garden and I said, well, shoot, let's do that. And then after I looked at the path of the garden, I said, well, shoot, let's do the driveway.
That's how it usually starts out.
Well, no, they want $5,000 to cement my driveway. Probably about $6,000 total.
Now, when you're done with your story, ask me how much I just spent to re-cement my entire driveway.
I'm going to ask you because they wanted $6,000 to do mine. And instead, I went to the mulch store and got this mulch. Now, they said it's triple shredded, so it's going to turn to dirt fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, well, by wintertime, it's going to be gone. The first time the snowplow comes, he's going to push it into a nice pile right by the garden. So when spring comes, all I got to do is shovel it into the garden and do it all over again. So I'm good with it.
You notice me laughing, right? I used to own my own snowplowing business. I know what really happens. You're gonna find it on either side of your driveway, and these rows that you're gonna have to rake back into the driveway, and you're gonna end up next spring with all kind of greenery growing up in the middle of your driveway.
I'm not against that. Anything to keep me from spending $5,000-6,000, man. That's all I'm saying.
When I had my rental house down the street there, that was about what they wanted to charge me to cement the driveway. And so what I ended up doing was I went to a landscaping place and I arranged to get another 2 yards of the crushed limestone delivered. But I told the guy, I need you to make me the absolute last customer of the day because I got a lot of work I got to do to get ready. And I went over to the house and spent the morning with a shovel, just basically shoveling what was there for stone and everything into the middle of the driveway and killing all the weeds, and then putting weed barrier down and trying to make little piles all over the driveway so when the guy pulled in with his truck, he could just dump the stone and I could rake it out. Yeah, well, that plan sounded better in theory than it worked out, but it was only $400 versus $5,000. I did spread 3 yards of crushed limestone over that weekend because the property manager I had hired to run the property for me told me that she had clients coming in on Monday whether I liked it or not.
Well, I got a better story than that. Remember I told you my driveway is dirt and limestone?
Yeah.
Well, a friend of mine's brother worked for the city, right?
Yep.
And they were grinding up the streets.
You got some turtle droppings.
It was closer for him to come to my house and drop off his load than to go to the dump.
Yeah, you know
he would come to my house, dump the stuff, spread it, and then chill for an hour and a half, because the dump site was 2 hours away.
You're talking about the milled up asphalt that when they're doing the milling.
Yes.
Down here it's known as turtle droppings because the number one company in this area that does that milling on highways, roadways, what have you, is a company called Turtle Pavement Reclamation.
Ah, okay.
I used to work with that back north when I was still driving truck. I've been underneath one of those millers as it's milling down a road. Very boring work, but I understand your friend there would rather haul the load to your house, dump it off, and chill for 2 hours than to drive out to the pit, dump it off, drive back to get right back under the milling truck again.
Exactly. I mean, and the way I looked at it, nobody lost. You know what I mean? It was going to take him. He was going to be gone 2 hours, regardless of whether it was at my house or on the highway. Actually, we saved the city gas.
The only way anybody would have lost, the guy I was working for at the time was actually mixing it with broken up asphalt and concrete and running it through a processing plant that crushed it down to if there was any solid chunks, it was no bigger than 3/4 of an inch. And it became, he would sell it as a inexpensive sub material for under driveways and other pads because the stuff packs down so
real
damn
nice. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But
he told me all I needed to do was throw some lime in it. If I had sprinkled out some lime on it, I'd essentially have concrete.
Yeah. Yeah, because that stuff will pack down nice and tight.
It does.
So you want to know how much I paid for my driveway just 6 months ago?
The one in front of your house.
The one in front of my house?
I didn't know it was messed up. Yeah. How much?
Yeah, there was a big oak tree out there. There used to be a big oak tree out there. And, oak trees, when they send roots sideways.
Right.
So oak trees will send roots underneath. If you let, like here in Florida, most of the houses are what they call the on grade. Yeah, pad on grade. So it will send a root. An oak tree too close to your house will send a root under that will actually crack the pad. One house I looked at for rental property, it had cracked the pad so bad it was actually scooting the cinder block on the lower level of the house sideways. And the house failed. The structure of the house failed the inspection because of that. So my driveway over here, now granted, the driveway was 20 years old. It was all fractured and then in a couple of places raised because of oak tree roots getting up underneath it. So like I said, I used to have an oak tree out there. When the guy gave me the price quote to do the driveway, the first thing I did was to hire a tree company to come in and cut the damn oak tree down and stump it.
And that stops the roots from growing? I mean,
well, yeah, that'll stop the roots from growing out. But it was almost $14,000 to replace my driveway.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Almost $14,000 to replace my driveway.
$14,000.
Yeah, that was by the time we got done paying the permitting fees, and the county charges a quote environmental impact fee. It's a damn dump charge for the guy to bring the broken up concrete.
But doesn't he build that into his price because he's got to pay it?
It said that when they give you the price quote, it says minus permitting and environmental impact fees, because they can never tell what those fees are until they actually go apply for the permit and they're done hauling your old driveway. Well, when they got done breaking up the old driveway, the next thing they did was they ran around the area with the bobcat and a set of forks to pull up all the roots. And you know that grass area on my front side of my driveway between the house and the street?
Yes.
They had that whole grass area almost 3 feet deep in roots when they got done.
Wow.
And when I went out to go redo the irrigation system for the lawn in that area, I went through, I want to say, probably 12 or 13 Sawzall blades cutting through the roots to run new piping for the sprinkler system.
So were they Harbor Freight Sawzall blades, or were they?
No, these were actually, if you look them up, they're called Diablo, and they are decent. But what I did not know is that, yeah, in the store you can buy Diablo wrecking blades, Diablo all material blades. But if you go on HomeDepot.com, you can find Diablo pruning blades that are designed for cutting tree roots and trimming branches and such like that. So you can turn your reciprocating saw into a pruner, electric pruner.
Dude, I found a pruner the other, probably 2 weeks ago. I put up a security camera, and the leaves from the tree were reflecting the light back into the camera and making it difficult to see. So I had every intention of going out there with my Sawzall, right?
Yeah.
But looking for my Sawzall, I found one of those reach poles.
Yep.
That a pruner, you know what I mean? And it had a saw on it.
But is it powered by manual labor or by motor?
Manual.
Yeah, but, I got one of those 13 feet tall.
This tree saw was so rusty that I didn't think it was going to work. You know, it's like a sickle curved at the end.
Yep.
Dude, I did 4 pulls on it, and the branch came down, and it must have been 3 inches wide. That thing is sharp as the Dickens, rusty.
Right. That and do not let that blade touch your skin. It will rip your skin apart. The way those teeth are designed, it rips right through a live tree branch.
Man, it tore it up, and so the kids, I didn't go back and get it. I just let the tree branch fall and stay on the tree. So the kids thought the wind did it.
Now you got a smoker?
No, I don't have a smoker.
Because what I used to do with the oak tree out front was when I would prune it, I would take the branches back and I would dry them out and use them in the smoker.
Well, yeah, that's for oak. I mean, I'm cutting down Tree of Heavens.
Don't know what those are.
Oh my goodness, they're a weed. They're a invasive weed. The one guy told me, he said, all the Tree of Heaven trees I have on my property come from the same root.
Yeah.
That's in the neighborhood. You know what I mean? It's one root, and these are all the little branches sticking out of them.
We got an invasive species tree down here called the Brazilian pepper tree. And it sends roots sideways, and the roots pop up new trees every so many feet. So one of my neighbors has one in the backyard, and so I constantly have to keep on, like, it'll start sending up new trees behind my shed where I don't mow regularly.
All right.
So I have to once every couple of months go back there with the pruners, the manual pruners, and start clipping the little seedlings or saplings it sends up.
Wow. Wow. Well, I did. I put my garden in 2 years ago, and I put the weed block in, right? And of course, at the beginning of the summer, it's nothing but weeds in the garden. It's just a garden of weeds. So this year, what I decided to do a forensic weeding. I went all the way down to the weed block and found the little white roots that were going across and popping up, and I pulled them out of every weed that I pulled. And I would get, 6 inches, 8 inches, 4 inches of root by pulling it out that way. And I found that afterwards, very few weeds came up.
Yeah, it takes a while for those roots to get their way back in, but they eventually come back in.
Yeah. Well, every time I weed, I'm doing it now. Every time I see a weed, I go down to the root and pull. So I think I'm saving myself some stuff.
I had 3 landscapers by here in the last couple of months because what I'm going to do, my lawn is like a mixture of 4 or 5 different grass types and mostly weeds now. So I finally gave up on trying to fix it myself, and I'm going to pay somebody to come in and just rip up the entire lawn and sod it. And the 3 landscapers all gave me the same look when I said I want it to be Bermuda. And they were like, "Bro, what?" I said, "Yes, I want it to be like a golf course out there. I want it to be Bermuda. I don't like this St. Augustine, cut it 3 inches long. It feels like walking across the spongy swamp when you're walking across your lawn. I want that nice, tight feeling, and I like to walk across my lawn barefooted, and I don't like the way St. Augustine feels under my bare foot." And so one of the landscapers is actually a friend of my kids. They all grew up playing together in the neighborhood. So he and I were talking while he's walking around, and he looks at me, he says, "I got to be honest with you, Mr. Bulu." He says, "Every customer I've ever had that asked for Bermuda has had me come back to get rid of the Bermuda and put in St. Augustine. And I'm going to tell you, it's tough to get rid of Bermuda once it establishes. You're going to have to keep weekly weeding it out of your flower beds. It's going to try to take over every square inch of your lawn. And then if you decide you want to kill it, it takes twice as much work." And I looked at him, I said, "Okay, if that's the case, I'll pay you a year from now to do that work."
Just put the shit in.
Right. Because he was the third one to say to me, "Why in the hell would you want to go with Bermuda? St. Augustine." I said, "You know what? St. Augustine is not the best. The first thing, if you go to the University of Florida website on grasses, they have the agricultural website, and you search grasses out there. The first comment that they make about St. Augustine is it is not inviting for a barefoot walk."
Who are you looking at?
Huh?
Who are you looking at? You keep looking down.
I'm just looking at my keyboard. But anyways, that's what it says. It's not inviting for. But the thing that I know, because every one of my neighbors just about has St. Augustine, and I see the ChemLawn and companies like ChemLawn trucks pulling up on a weekly basis to spray the lawns. And what I was told by a guy was the only way you will successfully have a long-lasting St. Augustine lawn is to make a deal with a company like ChemLawn to come in once a week and fertilize it and treat it for chinch bugs.
Well, I want you to know that I used to work for ChemLawn, my friend.
Okay.
And I think it's a scam. Oh, wait, Did I say that out loud?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's down here. If you're going to have a St. Augustine lawn, it's not a scam. You're not going to have a good green living St. Augustine. It'll be good and green for months, maybe up to a year, but then you'll start noticing the brown spots appearing all over the place. I got a neighbor down the street refuses to pay ChemLawn, so every so often you'll see him out there with a landscaping shovel cutting a section of his lawn completely out and then putting new sod in.
Oh, wow. Well, why not Kentucky bluegrass, Timmy?
You can't grow Kentucky bluegrass. Oh, trust me, if I could grow Kentucky bluegrass down here, brother, my lawn would be a nice thick Kentucky bluegrass. But
well, why can't you just topsoil it and then grow the grass?
The problem is that there's too much salt in the down here. So even if you topsoil it, you're just not going to be able to get the Kentucky bluegrass to go.
You're going to have 3 foot of topsoil.
yeah. Well, and the other part of it is that you're going to have to pump strictly city water on it, because you're not going to be able to pump from underground, because your underground water is going to have some salt in it and other chemicals that Kentucky bluegrass doesn't like. So
are those your only 2 strains? Are those the only 2 you can choose?
Oh, no. You got, they have a grass called Bahia, and it's what grows along the highways, because it's a very easy, it's basically scatter the seed, water it a few times, and in about a week it comes up, kind of like ryegrass, but it's not an annual. It doesn't, like I've planted rye in here several times to try to use as cover to get Bermuda, because Bermuda takes 21 days to germinate from a seed. So I've tried to use rye to cover to keep the area from drying out and burning up. And rye will come up. It'll last for about 3 weeks, but you still got to dump water multiple times a day on the lawn to get Bermuda to germinate.
I'm still thinking about the $14,000. $14,000.
Yeah, that was for the driveway. Like I said, the driveway was 20 years old, and it needed to be replaced. And I wasn't going to go to a smaller driveway. Matter of fact, we still don't have enough driveway. And what I found out when I went to go with a reputable company, because the first guy that I had come in to give me the price was going to completely just replace the driveway as is. But when he told me I had to pull the permits, I got a little nervous. So I brought in another company. And this guy looked at it, and the first thing he said to me is, "You can't replace this driveway as is. This driveway is not in code. I would have to completely redesign this driveway to get it in code."
What's code about a dang driveway? It's 4 inches thick and it wraps around the house.
They have a maximum width. Okay, so you know how I have that.
Aren't you grandfathered in because
not if you're replacing it? Not if you're replacing it. The old driveway was grandfathered in, but the minute I replaced it, I had to meet the code.
And the code was?
In the horseshoe area where my wife and my son Thomas park their vehicles, that can't be any wider than 14 feet, period. Okay? Going around to that straightaway where, double parking area where I put my pickup.
Right.
And my daughter puts her Prius.
Right.
That can be no wider than 20 feet. But here is where I ran into a problem. For the first 8 feet from the street, the city, what do you
right
call
away.
it?
The right
City
away.
Right away. You have to be 3 feet off the property line. So I couldn't go out to 20 feet wide, even though the code says I could be 20 feet wide there, because if I went to 20 feet wide, I didn't have 3 feet to the property line.
So you got to have a 3 foot space between your driveway and your property line.
Right. And so my next door neighbor, I've already warned him when he goes to replace his driveway, because his driveway is the same as mine and it goes right over to the property line. Our 2 driveways used to touch.
Right.
Well, not anymore. Well, they do at the top. Once you get beyond the 8 feet, you can go right over to the property line. So I had to, for the first 8 feet, I had to come 3 feet off the property line, but then I could bring the driveway over right to the property line after 8 feet.
So in other words, you had to keep the median for three. You had to keep their right of way for 3 feet between your driveway and the property line.
I've warned my neighbor when he goes to replace his driveway, he's going to have the same thing, so that in that 8 foot from the street up, there's going to be a 6 foot gap between our driveways. But you know how there's always more than one way to skin a cat, right?
Right.
So what I did was in that 3 feet little kind of doohickey here, I filled it with white marble.
Yeah.
And I park on it. You can't stop me from parking on the white marble.
Well, you know, they tried to give me a ticket, or actually they gave me a blight ticket because I had my car parked on the grass.
I'm waiting for that right now. I got my buddy Joe's car parked out in front of my house. He's trying to sell it, and he moved into a 55-plus community, and he can't store it over there, period.
Right.
So he had it at his niece's house, which is a couple of blocks away from me. And the neighborhood inspector come up and slapped the warning on her door that she had 24 hours to get the car moved or she was going to get the fine. So he moved it over here to my house, and I'm waiting for the warning to be slapped up on my door.
Same guy. So you're just going to play back and forth?
No, the neighborhood inspector, I have not seen her since my driveway, because when I was having the oak tree taken down, she came up and stopped my work crew and walked up and knocked on my door and asked me for my permit to take the oak tree down. And I looked at her and I said, "Sweetheart, in the state of Florida, as of July 1st, you no longer need a permit to take down an oak tree." And she's like, "I've never heard of that." I said, "Well, maybe you ought to pay more close attention to the news, because it's a state law that no city, municipality, county, anything can require a permit to take down an oak tree." She says, "Well, I'll have to go talk to my boss about that." I said, "Well, you go talk to your boss about that and come back and talk to me. In the meantime," I turned to the owner of the tree company. I said, "You guys get back to work for what I'm paying you to do."
Right. Bottom line is, if I got to pay the fine, I'm going to pay the fine. But there's not going to be an oak tree here.
At that point in time, Paul, there was the main trunk standing about 7.5 feet tall, and that was all that was left of the tree. So there was no way that we were going to stop there. So I said to her, "You go talk to your boss. Meantime, I'm finishing taking the tree down."
Well, I like the idea of neighborhood officers. Is that what you said? What was her title?
Well, they're code inspectors.
Right, and each neighborhood has one. And what do you call a neighborhood? A 20-block area or what?
Well, it all depends. The city has their designation of what is a neighborhood and how many code inspectors that they hire to watch in a neighborhood. And this one here, she watches, I know, at least 2 streets to my west, because that's where my buddy Joe used to live.
Right.
And she's harassed the hell out of him multiple times, because he owned a landscaping business at one point, and he comes home one day for lunch and, towing the landscaping trailer, decides to pull completely up onto his lawn because his neighbor across the street diagonally had this 24-foot huge fishing boat parked in front of his house. So he's like, my buddy Joe's like, "Well, I didn't want to block the street." So he pulls up on the lawn and run in the house and make himself some lunch and relax a little bit, when he gets a pounding on the door, and it's her handing him a warning, telling him he had to get his truck and trailer off the lawn. He looked at her and says, "Listen, it's just there while I have a lunch. I don't care. You can't park it on the lawn, period. City ordinance. You can't park it on the lawn."
It's not parked. The engine is running. I'm standing.
Well, I know she goes all the way over to my sister Cindy's house, because when Cindy's daughter Chanel was living there, Chanel used to like to come up the street the wrong way and park on the wrong side of the road. And she hit Cindy with a fine for Chanel's car being parked on the wrong side of the road.
That's fabulous. I mean, I kind of wish I I kind of wish we would do those kind of things. It seems like a way to generate revenue, and to create a cohesive neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Ask me, are you sure that this woman is that anal? And I said, okay, let me give you 2 examples of how anal this woman is. She came by through the neighborhood on a Monday and realized one of my neighbors replaced his garage door over the weekend and hit him with a $250 fine for replacing his garage door without a permit.
Fabulous.
Okay.
I'm not mad, Timmy. I'm not mad.
One New Year's Eve, 5 o'clock at night on a New Year's Eve, I'm out in my front yard, and she drives down the street slowly so she could eyeball each house, knowing she was going to be off for 5 days.
She wasn't checking to see if you took your Christmas lights down. Does she do that?
No, she doesn't do that. But if anything changes, the first thing she wants to do is jump out of her car and go see if you got a permit displayed.
That's her job. Yeah, that's her job. That's why you pay taxes. So you don't have people repairing cars in their front yard. You don't have people with shade tree mechanics with 7 cars in the driveway and 3 on the grass, right?
You are allowed to have 1 unregistered vehicle on your property, but it's supposed to be in your driveway, not on your lawn.
Well, they tried to give me a ticket for my RV and said that it was my 1 unregistered vehicle.
Yeah.
And I said, dude, it's a summer vehicle. We only register it in the summer when we use it. You know what I mean? We don't worry about it, when we're going to use it. He let me go. He let me go on that one. But, I had 5 other cars in the driveway.
in this city, you cannot park that RV at your house unless you can pull it into your side yard so the front of the RV is even with the front of your house. Period. So a lot of people have to rent storage spots to store their RV or store their boat because they can't fit it next to their house far enough back that the front is even with the front of their house. However, the city ordinance does say that you can bring said RV or boat back to your house over the weekend to clean it, work on it, do whatever. But it has to be off of your property or off of the street by 10 a.m. on a Monday morning. And this woman has been known to go out and give people tickets at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning.
Well, she loves her job. We need to find her a boyfriend or something. She needs another hobby. We need to, get her a dog. But I like the idea. I think the fact that one, it sounds like it's employing about 100, 150 people there in St. Pete. If you got 5 of them per neighborhood, maybe.
Yeah, it would be hard for me to guesstimate because the vehicles they drive are the exact same vehicle that the inspectors, like building inspectors and electrical and plumbing inspectors drive. It's the exact same vehicle that city supervisors drive. So they all look the same. So it's hard to tell. Is it a neighborhood inspector? Is it a building inspector of some type? Or is it just a city supervisor checking to make sure his crew has done their work?
Well, we need that too. Last thing I knew, we were hiring building inspectors from California.
Yeah.
To do our building inspections here in Flint.
Now, the guy that inspected my driveway, before they could pour the concrete back, after they did all the digging and the forming and got it ready for concrete, before they could schedule the concrete mixer, it needed an inspector sign-off. That guy didn't even bother getting out of his car. He pulled up on the wrong side of the road so he could look out the driver's window at my driveway, pulled up to one side, wrote a few things down, pulled up to the other side, wrote a few things down. I see him get on the radio, Next thing I know, the driveway guy is back, and he's like, "Yep, we're pouring at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning."
Nice, nice. Well, you know, I had a house fire, and my dealings with the inspection department were abysmal. I was just aghast. You know, the guy came the first time and said, "Okay, you need to do this, 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 and this," right? So I had my guy do this, 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 and this. Called the inspector out again. He said, "Okay, you need to do this, 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 and this." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. That was here the first time you came. Why wasn't it a part of the list the first time?" So we fixed this, that, and the other. Third time he comes, he finds some more shit. And I'm like, am I supposed to just offer you money? What is going on here? So I ended up calling the mayor. I had the guy standing right there. I called the mayor on the phone and I said, "I got this guy, blah, blah, blah," and I'm telling him what he's doing. And he said, "Let me talk to him." And he talked to him and he says, "You're okay to go."
He's just going to keep playing you.
Playing me. And I'm like, well, how many people have the mayor's number? You know what I'm saying? How many people are they screwing like this?
I used to have that problem with the health inspector in Scituate. I don't know what I did to make her hate me as much as she hated me. But, you know, I had that in-ground septic system, and Massachusetts passed this thing called Title V, where if you added a bedroom onto your house, or you increased the size of your house by X amount of square feet, or you were getting ready to sell your house, you had to do a Title V inspection. And if your septic system didn't pass, you had to replace it. So here I am. I got this deck on the back of the house, and I decide that I'm going to enclose it with what's called a 3-season glass room, but I'm going to make it a 4-season room by throwing heat in it. So I get it all enclosed and everything. Well, somebody told her about it. So she calls me down to her office and starts reading me the Riot Act. And she's telling me, "I'm going to be coming by to take a look at that and see if it is actually an extra bedroom you just added into your house. And if it is, I'm going to take a real close look at your septic system." And I smiled and said, "Okay, no problem." Stepped across the street to the the hall, I should say, to the building inspector's office, whose son I used to coach in football. And I said to him, "This is what's going on." And he looked at me and he said, under his breath, "That bitch." He looked up at me and said, "Here's what you're going to do to defeat her purpose." He said, "Was there any windows on the back of the house that faced out onto that deck?" I said, "Yeah, there was a nice double set of windows." He said, "So now you got that all weatherproof and you got heat in it. You got any objections to pulling that double windows out and making it a cased opening?" I said, "Nope, no objections whatsoever." He said, "How about the doorway that used to lead out of the back of the house into it? Could you take that out and make that a cased opening as well?" I said, "Yeah, I could." He says, "Okay, go ahead and do that. And if she wants to call that a bedroom with a glass roof, a complete glass wall, 2 walls that are half glass, and a 72-inch cased opening, plus a 36-inch cased opening, then her and I will have a conversation of what constitutes a bedroom."
I mean, that seems overkill. The glass alone takes it out of the bedroom realm, doesn't it?
Not in her mind.
I mean, but it doesn't have to be in her mind. It has to be in the code.
No, you have to deal with her interpretation. She's the health inspector. So time came to sell the house. She got real happy. She got real happy. And she said to me, and this is the only Title V inspector that the town of Scituate authorizes to do Title V inspections. Right. All right, fine. I'll pay the guy that's going to give you your kickbacks. He comes in. We pop the lid. He takes a few pictures inside of my tank, and being a 30 at the time, 30-some-odd-year-old septic tank, it was showing a little sign of wear. But when we dug up the distribution box and poured the 5 gallons of water down the distribution box, it exceeded, not met, the minimum requirements for water flow out. It exceeded the requirements, and there was no sign of any water, any water coming up to the ground top, or no leakage around the end of the property or anything. So in 100%, well, in 90% of the steps, it met or exceeded the minimum requirements to pass a Title V inspection. But because she was able to point to that little bit of aggregate wear, she failed the system, and it cost me $25,000 to replace the system before I could sell the house, despite the fact that a year later, town sewer was going to be known to be running right by that house, and the house would be required to hook up to town.
So couldn't you have just held off yourself for a year?
I could have. The problem was I had already bought the house down here in Florida, so I was trying to hold down 2 mortgages, and I didn't want to be a distance landlord. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was kind of a distance landlord. You remember my cousin David, right?
Yeah, Penis house next door.
Yeah, well, David was living in the house for me and keeping it up, and he was paying the gas and electricity bill while I paid the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, and I was paying a guy that was supposed to come by once a week and keep the lawn cut.
Okay.
And I would have to keep calling David and asking him, did he come by this week? No. All right, dude, why didn't you come by this week? You've already been paid. Come by the house, keep the lawn cut. There's a for sale sign out in front of the house. I'm trying to sell the place.
Man, and I'm sure that was one of your relatives too, wasn't it?
No, it's just somebody I knew. But I had a cousin that was pissed at me because I wouldn't let her just move in and rent the place from me and hold on to it. But it was like, I'm paying $1,500 a month mortgage up there and $1,200 a month mortgage down here.
Hold on, you're telling me Stockbridge Road was $1,500 a month?
Yeah, you know the worst part was?
Holy crap!
The principal and interest was only $750. The rest of it was taxes, because the insurance was only $350 a year.
Well, yeah, Scituate is a beach community, so the taxes are going to be outrageous. We pay $4,000, $4,500 a year in Grand Blanc in taxes. Yeah. We pay $1,000 a year here in Flint, and the difference is night and day. The Grand Blanc has an inspector, a neighborhood inspector. Yeah, Flint doesn't. You see what I'm saying? Yep. So that extra money, I guess, gets you the extra aggravation. Well, but it also gives you a better city.
Well, it depends. Well, yeah, I guess you could say it gives you a better presentable city because the inspectors are keeping everything on track and up to code and up to snuff.
And it's keeping your property values, right? I mean, I don't think the sub pump or the septic tanks are going to shoot your property values. Yeah. But aesthetically, no driving, no parking on the grass. They want everything to look the same with the concrete. I don't get that. My property is my property. Yeah. I can see not being able to build on there right away. That kind of reminds me of the gangster gardener. You heard about him out in L.A.?
No.
He said that the city told him that they, this was not his property. It's the city's property. You pay taxes on it, and you're required to maintain it. You have to mow it. You can't let it go.
Yep.
So he decided that if I have to maintain it, I'm going to maintain it the way I want to maintain it. And he put a garden in the strip of grass between the sidewalk and the street. Well, one of the neighbors complained. Council person came out, complained, told him he had to rip it out. The news got a hold of it and started a whole big shebang about it. He ended up getting famous, going on tour. You gotta see his clip, man. You gotta go to YouTube and watch the Gangster Gardener. He is the guy that got me gardening. and it was really simple. He said a line in the TED Talk. He says, "Kids that grow tomatoes eat tomatoes.
Uh-huh.
Kids that grow kale eat kale." You see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And he talked about how they're in his neighborhood. They're trading the little Amiga carts like cars. You know, there's a used Amiga car lot in South Central California because so many people have diabetes and foodborne illnesses. So he's the one that got me to put in the garden. These dang groundhogs are the ones that are going to get me to take them out. Oh man, I got 4 groundhogs in my garden. The dogs have gotten 2.
Yeah.
Isaac, I'm sitting on the back step, and Isaac just bounds up to me with something in his mouth, and he's just happy, and he sets it down at my feet, and I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Good dog.
Good dog. So then he picks it up, and he takes it to the garden, and we're still got post holes for our posts.
Uh-huh.
And he neatly drops it in one of the post holes and starts burying it.
I like Isaac.
I'm afraid he's going to go back later to get it.
You remember Mr. Lopes that lived next door to me in Scituate?
Down by the where they had those lobster traps?
Yeah, remember that right next door to me, the greenhouse that was right next door. He always had a farm tractor in there.
Yeah, yeah.
So I worked for him for several years. And you know how he used to have me and him deal with groundhogs?
Uh-oh.
Whenever he had one in any of his gardens, we wouldn't do a dang thing until we could locate, because a groundhog will always dig 2 tunnels out of its den.
Right.
So he would have, we'd go around and we'd locate both ends of the tunnels. And once he had both ends of the tunnels, he would go to one end and take a gasoline-soaked rag and stuff it in that end of the tunnel. And then he would light it on fire and wait at the other end for the groundhog to come running out and then take care of it.
I like the way you think. I could park Isaac and Newton at the second hole and flush them out of the first hole, and we could take care of these little punks. Ate all my lettuce, man. I went down to Nashville. I took Marky down to Nashville. When was it? My goodness. I think we left Thursday. I think we left last Thursday.
That was just last week. Last Friday, you were in Nashville.
Yeah. So it was Thursday we left, and we went down and took him to Nashville. And then I had to end up. We went and picked up my Prius, my
Primo.
I call it the Primo. Right. So we get in the Primo and we're cruising. It feels good, man. I'm smiling. I'm having a good time. I finally, after about 40 miles, I felt comfortable enough to turn on the radio because, I'm listening for noises and all this kind of stuff. I get the radio turned on. And I'm rolling. Next thing I know, every light on the dashboard comes on.
We be rolling.
I'm pulling to the side of the road. And it took me a while to figure out I had run out of gas in my electric car. So it gets better. I had to call a tow truck. Called my insurance company and got the tow truck down there. And they wanted $243 to tow it 90 miles back to the guy's shop. So I'm not mad. That was reasonable in my mind, okay? So we make all those arrangements. The guy took him 3 hours to get to us, so we're on the side of the highway for 3 hours. He finally takes it up there, and we head back to Nashville, and my phone starts ringing. First, it's Allstate. First is my insurance company telling me that they miscalculated my location, and instead of it being 90 miles, it was 206 miles. And because they couldn't add the 20 miles to the bill, they would have to void the transaction, and I would have to pay the tow truck directly. So I said, no problem, I can do that. So I hang up the phone. The tow truck lady calls me on the phone. And she says, okay, you want MasterCard or Visa? That'll be $497.82. And I'm like, what? She says, yeah, we charge $4 a mile. This transaction not going through State Farm, you don't get State Farm's rates. You have to pay our rates. And I says, well, that's not going to happen. So before I could call State Farm back, State Farm is on the line trying to explain that because the location was wrong, I have to pay the separate charge. And I'm like, I had nothing to do with the location being wrong. That's your software. That's your stuff. I have nothing to do with that. So why am I being penalized? So we argued back and forth. I'm going to tell you, man, I got 6 calls between the tow truck threatening to keep my car if I didn't pay them, and my insurance company telling me that there's nothing they could do because they had already voided the transaction. So the last person I talked to, I said, listen, if you don't have your supervisor call me, the next call you'll get will be from my lawyer. I hung up the phone, and before I could tell Marcus what had taken place, the phone rang, and the woman introduced herself as a regional manager or whatever she said. She said, Mr. Herring, don't worry about it. You're taken care of. Thanks for your business.
Well, you got off better than I did, because I had a similar situation where I had to have Heidi's car towed back from Orlando. She had gone to go pick up Michael, and the thing overheated, or registered that it was overheating. Uh-huh. And so the insurance company, I called them, and they said, well, roadside only gives you this much. And so to get it back to St. Petersburg tonight, you're going to have to pay this much. And I said to the woman, okay, I'm willing to pay that much. She said, okay, we'll contact the towing company and make the arrangements. So then I get the phone call from the towing company, and the guy on the towing company says to me, the charge, I said, I don't know what the insurance company told you, but the charge is going to be this much. And I said, well, that's not what they told me. You're way above what they told me. He said, well, I'm not sure where they're getting their numbers from, but this is what we charge. This is what it's going to cost. Are you authorizing the tow? And I said, let me call you right back. I got his information. I called the insurance company and spoke to a supervisor there. And I said this to her, hey, the tow guy just called me, blah, 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 blah. And she says to me, well, the person who gave you that quote over the phone, they were just going by information that's in front of them. We actually don't control our towing companies and the rates that they charge. So the quote that you were given was just an estimation of what the charges would be. I said, well, let me tell you something right now.
I'm going to estimate my new insurance company.
You should tell your people that they shouldn't be given estimates to customers unless they're absolutely sure what the towing company's charging. You should tell them that they should be telling the customer, well, it's going to cost you more because you're going beyond what's covered. So you'll have to discuss with the towing company what the difference is.
Yeah, usually they say, Mr. Herring, we only pay for the first 18 miles. Anything over that, you're going to have to get those. So, Timmy, you did it wrong. You're supposed to have it towed to the nearest facility that could fix it. So you find the farthest Ford dealer, right? And then you let it sit in their yard for a day, and then you call back and you get another tow to the next nearest facility, and you just puddle jump that baby home.
See, that wasn't a game I was ready to play, because my son Michael was coming in from college for a weekend visit. So that meant that this was on a Friday. That meant on Sunday, Heidi had to be needed her vehicle to be able to run him back to Orlando.
Nice.
The part that really frustrated me is well, that was on a Thursday, excuse me. On Friday, I get up and I drive the car over to my mechanic. He throws it on the computer and he looks at me and he says, did she tell you how hot this thing got up to? I said, well, she said when she looked at the gauge, it was at 210, but the overheat light was on. Why? He says, because the computer has not registered an overheat in this car. So I think your sensor's malfunctioning.
Wow. You got 10 seconds. Say goodbye.
People, educate yourself and vote. Vote, vote, vote. You only get to vote once, but make sure you vote.
I heard 3 votes in that vote. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for joining us. It's been Eclectic Ramblings. Man, what else am I going to say? I'm not going to say anything because he took all my time. It's 10 o'clock. All right. Hey, remember, enjoy the life you're living just until you can live the life you'll enjoy. Peace.
Peace.
I got to